Hey, you guys. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to hit subscribe, especially if you love those unsettling, almost too real stories that make you question what's real and what's manipulation. You're sitting in that weekly team meeting, the one that could have been an email fueled by lukewarm coffee and the sheer will to stay upright. Your boss, let's call them Pat, is outlining the new project plan. And that's when it happens. Pat says, and as we all agreed last Tuesday, the deadline for the initial mock-ups will be this Friday. A record scratches in your brain. You distinctly remember this conversation. You remember it because you were the one who argued, quite passionately, that a Friday deadline was pure, unadulterated madness. You remember suggesting the following Wednesday, a suggestion Pat seemed to agree with, even nodding thoughtfully. So, you clear your throat, a little nervously, because public contradiction is a high-stakes sport. Actually, Pat, you begin, I thought we landed on next Wednesday to give the design team enough time for revisions. Pat stops. The entire room, all three other people, turn to you. Pat smiles, a tight, unamused little smile that doesn't reach the eyes. No, Pat says, with the calm finality of a judge delivering a verdict. No, we definitely said this Friday. I have it in my notes. And you freeze. Do you push back? Do you insist? But Pat's confidence is a brick wall. Suddenly, you're not so sure. Was it Wednesday? Did you dream it? Maybe you misunderstood. The memory, so solid a moment ago, now feels like smoke slipping through your fingers. You look down at your own notes, which frustratingly just say deadlines, with 3 question marks, a testament to your faith in your own memory at the time. You stammer a quiet, "Oh, okay, my mistake." The meeting moves on, but you don't. You're stuck on that moment, a weird, unsettling feeling churning in your gut. It's a feeling of being wrong-footed, of your own mind betraying you. And it's not the first time, is it? That feeling, that dizzying sense of, wait, am I losing my mind? Has a name. And no, it's not just another case of the Mondays. It's called gaslighting. The term gets thrown around a lot these days, sometimes to describe any old disagreement. But real gaslighting is so much more specific and so much more insidious. It actually comes from a 1938 play and later a super creepy 1944 movie called Gaslight, starring Ingrid Bergman. The plot is simple. A manipulative husband wants to steal his wife's inheritance, so he decides the most efficient way to do that is to, convince her she's completely insane. Classic romance. He does all sorts of weird stuff, like dimming the gas-powered lights in their house, but then insisting it's all in her head. When she says, "Hey, honey, are the lights getting dimmer or am I having a stroke?" he'd hit her with the classic, "You're imagining things, my dear. You're so sensitive. You've been so overwrought lately." He hides her jewelry, then helps her look for it, making her feel incompetent and forgetful. He orchestrates strange noises in the attic and then denies hearing a thing. His goal is to systematically dismantle her perception of reality until she can no longer trust her own senses, her own memory, her own sanity. He wants to become the sole arbiter of her reality. What's real? Whatever he says is real. What happened? Whatever he says happened. It's a psychological long con, and it's terrifyingly effective. By the end, she's so broken down that she's on the verge of being committed to a mental institution, exactly as he planned. Now, it's a dramatic, black and white thriller, but the core tactic is what matters, making someone doubt the evidence of their own eyes and ears. Okay, so your boss probably isn't trying to steal your family jewels or have you committed. At least, I hope not. If they are, that's a whole other YouTube channel. But the tactics? The psychological blueprint? It's been pulled from the Victorian parlor and dropped right into the open plan office. Corporate gaslighting is the new hotness in toxic workplace trends. It's quieter, more subtle. There are no flickering gas lamps, But there's the flickering doubt after your boss denies giving you instructions they clearly sent in an email last week. There are no strange noises from the attic, but there's the strange, deafening silence when you bring up a promise they made about a promotion in your last performance review. The goal is the same: to gain power and control by systematically making you question your competence, your contributions, and your sanity. It's manipulation disguised as management. It's making you the problem so they never have to be. Think about it. A good boss builds you up. They want you to be confident, competent, and autonomous. A gaslighting boss, on the other hand, needs you to be off balance. They thrive on your uncertainty. Why? Because an employee who doubts themselves is an employee who is easier to control. You're less likely to push back, less likely to ask for a raise, less likely to challenge their bad ideas, and less likely to realize that the problem isn't you, it's them. They create a fog of confusion, and in that fog, they can reshape narratives, avoid accountability, and maintain their position of authority without ever having to be particularly good at their job. It's a dark, twisted Jedi mind trick, and you're the stormtrooper who suddenly decides these aren't the droids you're looking for, even though they are, in fact, the exact droids you were sent to find. So, let's get into the nitty-gritty. What does this actually look like day to day? The number one, top of the charts, Hall of Fame move for a gaslighting boss is flat-out denial. It's their bread and butter. It's the foundation upon which their entire palace of confusion is built. You'll have a conversation, a crystal clear, unambiguous exchange, where they tell you to prioritize Project A over Project B. You spend a week pouring your soul into Project A. Then, during a team update, they'll look at you with baffling sincerity and ask, "So, where are we on Project B? That's our number one priority. I made that very clear." And when you say, "But you told me to focus on A," they'll hit you with the kill shot. "I would never say that. Why would I say that? That makes no sense." It's so bold, so audacious that it short-circuits your brain. Part of you wants to scream, but another, more powerful part starts to question everything. Did they say it? Was it an email or a conversation? Maybe I misheard. Maybe I inferred it. This tactic is devastating because it attacks the very bedrock of professional life, shared reality. We have to be able to agree on what was said and what was decided to get anything done. When your boss unilaterally opts out of that social contract, it creates chaos. And in that chaos, they are king. They'll also question your memory directly, often with a little sprinkle of fake concern. "Are you sure you remember that correctly? You've seemed a bit scattered lately." Or the classic, "I don't recall that at all. Maybe you're mixing it up with that other project." It's a masterclass in passive aggression. They're not calling you a liar. Oh no, that would be too direct. They're just concerned. They're planting a seed of doubt not only about the specific event, but about your overall mental state. And if you hear that enough, you start to believe it. You start to preface every statement with, "I might be wrong, but," or "correct me if I'm wrong." You start to second-guess every decision, every memory, until you feel like you need to record every conversation just to prove to yourself that you're not making things up. This constant need for self-documentation is exhausting. You start to feel less like an employee and more like a courtroom stenographer for a trial where you're the only one on the stand. But the gaslighter's toolkit has more than just denial. What happens when you have undeniable proof, like an email chain that clearly backs you up? Well, they can't deny the facts, so they pivot. They attack the validity of your reaction to the facts. This is where you get hit with the classic 1-2 punch of, "You're being too sensitive," or "You're overreacting." Let's say your boss, Pat, cancels a project you've spent the last month on, a project you've pulled late nights for. It's canceled via a one-line email at 6 p.m. on a Friday. Naturally, you're frustrated, you're disappointed, you might even feel disrespected. On Monday, you try to talk to Pat about it, not aggressively, but just to understand what happened and express your disappointment. And Pat will listen with that same patient, condescending look, and then say, "I understand you're upset. But you can't get so emotional about these things. It's just business. You're taking this way too personally. See what happened there? The conversation is no longer about their unprofessionalism or the wasted work. It's about your inappropriate emotional response. They've reframed your valid frustration as a personal failing, a sign of your weakness. It's a brilliant, diabolical move. It invalidates your feelings and positions them as the calm, rational adult in the room, dealing with a hysterical child. And if you're someone who tries to be professional, being called too emotional at work is like a dagger. It makes you instantly self-conscious and defensive, and just like that, they've won the exchange. This tactic of minimizing your feelings is so effective because it weaponizes your own emotions against you. We all want to believe we have a good emotional compass, right? That we can accurately gauge situations and react appropriately. But when someone in a position of power repeatedly tells you that your reactions are wrong, too big, too sensitive, too dramatic, you start to distrust your own instrument panel. It's like having an emotional thermostat in your brain. When something bad happens, the temperature drops and you feel cold, sad, angry, frustrated. When something good happens, the temperature rises and you feel warm, happy, proud, excited. A gaslighter is the person who comes in, sees you shivering, and tells you it's actually 80 degrees and you should probably take off your sweater. They do it with such conviction that you start to wonder, is my thermostat broken? Am I the only one who feels cold right now? After a while, you stop trusting the reading altogether. You feel that pang of injustice when your idea is stolen in a meeting, but you immediately suppress it. I'm probably overreacting, you tell yourself. You feel a surge of pride for a job well done, but you downplay it, afraid of seeming arrogant. Your boss has effectively broken your emotional gauge and installed their own. From now on, the correct way to feel is whatever they tell you is the correct way to feel, which is usually a state of numb, compliant neutrality. This is incredibly dangerous because your emotions are data. They are your internal warning system. Anger tells you a boundary has been crossed. Frustration tells you an obstacle is in your way. Joy tells you you're on the right path. By convincing you that your warning system is faulty, the gaslighter can cross all your boundaries and block all your paths, and you'll just stand there thinking, well, I guess this is fine. Once they've messed with your perception of reality and your emotional responses, they move on to the grand finale of psychological warfare, shifting the blame. A gaslighting boss has a near supernatural inability to accept responsibility for anything that goes wrong. Their record is cleaner than a freshly bleached operating room. If a deadline is missed, it's not because they failed to approve the drafts in time. It's because you didn't manage up and remind them enough. If a client is angry, it's not because they gave the client incorrect information. It's because you didn't build a strong enough relationship to smooth things over. It's never, ever their fault. You become the designated scapegoat, the official repository for all of their mistakes and shortcomings. Here's a story for you. Let's say your boss, Pat, is responsible for submitting the quarterly budget report to finance. It's their job, it's on their calendar, everyone knows it. But Pat gets busy, or forgets, or decides that watching YouTube tutorials on how to build a ship in a bottle is a better use of their time. The deadline flies by. The CFO sends a furious email to the entire department. What does Pat do? Do they say, "My apologies, everyone, I dropped the ball"? Of course not. Don't be ridiculous. Instead, Pat will call you into their office, or worse, announce in a team meeting, "I'm very disappointed. I asked you to put together the final numbers for me, and they never arrived. Now we all look bad because you dropped the ball." You're sitting there, flabbergasted, because no such request was ever made. But Pat is doubling down, expressing their disappointment in your lack of follow-through. They've not only dodged the bullet, they've picked it up and fired it directly at you. Now you're the one who looks incompetent and unreliable, while they look like the poor, long-suffering manager who just can't get good help these days. This public blame shifting isn't just about avoiding trouble, It's a power move designed to isolate you. When your boss blames you in front of the team, they're doing two things. First, they're cementing their own narrative. If they say it with enough confidence, other people, especially people who don't have all the facts, are likely to believe them. Suddenly, your reputation is tarnished. Your colleagues might start to see you as unreliable. They might be hesitant to work with you on future projects. Second, it sends a clear message to everyone else in the room. Step out of line, and this could be you. It's a form of control through fear. Your public humiliation becomes a cautionary tale for the rest of the team, ensuring their compliance. The gaslighter cultivates an environment where everyone is too scared to challenge them because they've seen what happens to those who do. You become the official scapegoat. This is a role as old as time. In ancient rituals, a goat would be symbolically laden with the sins of the community and then cast out into the wilderness to die, cleansing the village of its guilt. In the modern office, you're the goat. Every missed target, every client complaint, every procedural screw-up gets loaded onto your back. And then, you're cast out, not into the wilderness, but into a wilderness of social isolation, professional stagnation, and crippling self-doubt. Your boss, meanwhile, remains pure and blameless, the benevolent leader who just wishes their team were as competent as they are. They might even offer you coaching or a performance improvement plan to help you with the very problems they created and pinned on you. It's the ultimate act of psychological jujitsu, using your own career development as a weapon against you. It's a special kind of hell, isn't it? Being meticulously coached on how to fix a problem that was never yours to begin with. You sit in these development meetings, nodding along as your boss outlines all the ways you need to be more proactive and detail-oriented, when what they really mean is you need to get better at reading their mind. This leads us to another classic move in the gaslighter's playbook: deliberately withholding crucial information. This is a subtle one because it's so easily passed off as a simple mistake, but it happens too often to be an accident. You'll be assigned a major task, something with a lot of moving parts. You get to work, you're making progress, but you have this nagging feeling that you're missing something. Turns out, you are. You're missing the fact that the client changed the brief 2 days ago. You're missing the fact that a key stakeholder is on vacation and won't be able to approve the final stage. You're missing the key piece of data that changes the entire direction of the project. And where is this information? Oh, it's sitting comfortably in your boss's inbox. They saw it, they read it, and they just didn't tell you. So you inevitably fail, or you look foolish in a meeting. You present the outdated brief and the client looks at you like you have 3 heads. And what does your boss do? They feign shock. Oh my goodness, you didn't get that update? I was sure I forwarded that to you. I'm so sorry, team. It seems there was a breakdown in communication. Notice the wording? A breakdown in communication. So neutral, so passive. It's not, I failed to give my employee critical information. It's some vague, ethereal breakdown. And then, the knife twist. We all need to be better at making sure the loop is closed. Suddenly, it's a team problem. Or even better, it's your problem for not chasing them down for information you didn't even know existed. It's a perfect crime. They set the trap, watch you walk into it, and then publicly admonish you for not seeing the invisible tripwire. Setting you up to fail like this serves a very specific purpose. It reinforces the narrative that you are incompetent. Each time you stumble because you were denied the tools to succeed, it adds another piece of evidence to the case your boss is building against you. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy they orchestrate. But here's where it gets even more twisted. All of this negativity, the denial, the blame shifting, the setups, is often punctuated by bizarre, confusing bursts of praise. This is the psychological equivalent of a flashbang grenade. 1 minute, you're the office idiot who can't be trusted to forward an email. The next, you're a rock star. Pat will pull you aside after a meeting where they just subtly undermined you and say, "That was brilliant, what you did in there. Just brilliant. I see a real future for you here." Or they'll send a company-wide email praising you for a minor success, making you feel like you're on top of the world. For a moment, the fog lifts. You think, okay, maybe I was wrong about them. Maybe they really do value me. Maybe I have been too sensitive. You feel a rush of relief and gratitude. You're desperate for their approval, and they just gave you a huge hit of it. This is not a sign of a complex boss who is just misunderstood. This is a calculated tactic called intermittent reinforcement. It's the same principle that makes slot machines so addictive. If a machine paid out every time, you'd get bored. If it never paid out, you'd walk away. But because it pays out randomly, unpredictably, you keep pulling that lever, hoping for the next reward. Your boss is the slot machine. They keep you in a constant state of uncertainty, doling out just enough praise to keep you hooked, to keep you trying, to stop you from walking away. This hot and cold routine creates a powerful, addictive cycle. The lows are so low, the criticism, the humiliation, the self-doubt, that the highs feel impossibly high. That small crumb of praise feels like a gourmet meal because you've been starving for validation. This emotional roller coaster is exhausting, but it's also incredibly effective at keeping you compliant. You start to live for those good moments. You'll work harder, stay later, and tolerate more unacceptable behavior, all in the hopes of triggering another payout of praise. You start to believe that if you can just be perfect enough, smart enough, and agreeable enough, you can make the good boss stay for good. But you can't, because the bad boss is the real one. The praise is the performance. It's a tool, a means to an end. The end is keeping you manageable and dependent. It also serves to confuse anyone you might try to complain to. If you go to HR or a senior manager and say, "My boss is a nightmare, they're constantly undermining me," the first thing HR will do is talk to your boss. And Pat, being the master manipulator they are, will pull out the receipts. "I don't understand. I think they're a superstar. In fact, just last week I sent an email to the whole division praising their work on the Johnson account." And just like that, you look like the unstable one. You look like the one who is, you guessed it, too sensitive or overreacting. Your boss's occasional praise isn't for you. It's their alibi. It's a preemptive strike against any future complaints you might make. They are playing chess while you're still trying to figure out the rules of checkers, a game they keep changing every 5 minutes. So now they've isolated you from higher-ups in HR. What's next? Isolating you from your peers. A truly skilled gaslighter knows they can't control you if you have a strong support system at work. If you and your deskmate can turn to each other and say, "Did Pat seem insane in that meeting, or was it just me?" the illusion shatters. The gaslighter's power depends on you believing that you are the only one who sees the problem, which makes you think the problem must be you. To prevent this, they will actively try to turn your coworkers against you. They do this by recruiting what are sometimes called flying monkeys. It's a term borrowed from The Wizard of Oz, of course, where the Wicked Witch of the West sends her winged monkeys to do her dirty work. In the office, your boss will pull one of your colleagues aside for a confidential chat. They'll put on their most concerned face and say something like, "I'm getting a little worried about Sarah. Her performance has been slipping, and she seems so negative lately. I was hoping you could help me keep an eye on her, maybe help keep her motivated." It's framed as a request for help, but it's really an order to spy. They'll triangulate, creating drama and distrust. They'll tell you that your coworker, Mark, was critical of your work, and then they'll tell Mark that you were complaining about him. They become the central hub of all communication, twisting narratives and poisoning the well of collegial trust. Before you know it, the coworker you used to grab lunch with is suddenly too busy. The team members who used to laugh at your jokes are now quiet and avoid eye contact. You start getting left off of email chains and meeting invites for optional syncs. You feel a creeping paranoia, but it's not paranoia if they really are turning against you. Your boss has successfully turned your peers into unwitting accomplices in your isolation. And that's how you end up on an island. It's a lonely place to be, surrounded by the ghosts of your former work friendships. The silence from your colleagues is a different kind of loud, isn't it? It's an echoing confirmation of your deepest fear, that you are the problem. This is the endgame of all those tactics we've talked about. The denial, the blame, the hot and cold praise, the isolation, it all leads here to this profound sense of personal failure. You start to internalize the gaslighting. It becomes the background music of your own thoughts. You find yourself apologizing for everything. "Sorry to bother you," you type before asking a simple question. "Sorry, this might be a stupid idea," you say before offering a suggestion. You apologize for taking up space, for having needs, for existing. You become a ghost in your own career, haunting the hallways, trying not to get in anyone's way. And the second guessing becomes a full-time job. You reread every email 20 times before hitting send, terrified of a single word being misinterpreted. You lie awake at night, replaying conversations from the day, dissecting every word, every look. When Pat said my report was fine, did they mean it was actually fine? Or was that code for, "This is garbage and you're a failure"? You live in a state of constant, high-alert analysis, trying to decode a language that's designed to be indecipherable. Your own instincts, which used to be a reliable compass, now just spin wildly. You don't trust your gut anymore because your boss has convinced you it's broken. This constant mental gymnastics takes a physical toll. You might start experiencing things you never have before. The Sunday scaries become the Sunday terrors, a wave of dread that starts washing over you earlier and earlier, maybe even on Saturday afternoon. You might find it hard to sleep, your mind refusing to shut down, always running threat assessments for the next workday. You might feel a constant low-grade anxiety, a tightness in your chest, or a knot in your stomach that never quite goes away. Your body is trying to tell you something. It's waving a giant red flag, screaming, "This situation is not safe." But the gaslighting has taught you to ignore your own warning signs. You tell yourself you're just stressed. You tell yourself you need to be more resilient. You might even blame yourself for not being able to hack it in a fast-paced environment. You start to lose your spark. Hobbies you used to love feel like a chore. You're too drained to meet up with friends. Your entire life starts to shrink until it's just work, sleep, and dreading work. You've forgotten what it feels like to be confident, to be competent, to feel psychologically safe. Your job, which is supposed to provide a livelihood, is actively costing you your well-being. This isn't just a tough boss. This is a slow-motion psychological injury, and the scars aren't visible, which makes it all the harder to explain to yourself and to others. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts, each one a tiny invalidation, a miniature denial, a subtle lie that builds up over time into a gaping wound. Now, here's a question that might be running through your head. Why? Why would anyone do this? Are they just evil? Are they a cartoon villain twirling their mustache? Sometimes, maybe. But more often, it comes from a place of deep, deep insecurity. And that brings us to a neat little psychological trick called projection. Imagine your boss has a movie projector in their brain, and on the film reel are all of their own worst qualities, their laziness, their disorganization, their incompetence, their fear of being found out as a fraud. A healthy person would watch that movie, acknowledge it, and try to work on it, but a gaslighter can't stand to look at their own flaws. So they turn the projector outwards and play that movie on a screen. And that screen is you. They are literally projecting their own shortcomings onto you. Is your boss secretly terrified that they're disorganized and can't keep track of details? Well, get ready for endless lectures about your organizational skills. They will micromanage your calendar and critique the way you file your documents, all to avoid the fact that their own desk looks like a family of raccoons hosted a potluck. Do they feel lazy and unmotivated? They'll accuse you of not being a team player or lacking initiative. Are they the one who tells lies and twists the truth? They'll constantly question your honesty and integrity. They are offloading their psychological baggage onto you and making you carry it. It's a defense mechanism. By making you the incompetent one, they get to feel competent by comparison. By making you the emotional one, they get to feel rational. It's a twisted way of regulating their own self-esteem at your expense. Let me tell you a story about someone we'll call Alex. Alex was a rock star, top of their field, poached from a rival company, brought in to lead a new, high-stakes initiative. Alex's new boss, we'll call him David, was charismatic, funny, and full of praise. In the first few weeks, David couldn't stop talking about how lucky he was to have Alex on the team. He'd say things like, "You're a lifesaver. I don't know what we'd do without you." Alex was thrilled. This was the dream job. But then, little things started happening. David would schedule a one-on-one to brainstorm strategy, and Alex would come prepared with a full presentation. The meeting would be great, full of energy and ideas. Then, a week later, David would present Alex's core ideas in a leadership meeting as if they were his own. When Alex tried to gently bring it up, David would laugh it off. "What are you talking about? We're a team. We came up with it together. Don't be so territorial about ideas, Alex." It was slick. It made Alex feel small and petty for even mentioning it. Then came the concerns. David would tell Alex, "You're doing amazing work, but some of the junior staff find you a bit intimidating. Maybe try to be more approachable." He was poisoning the well, positioning Alex as difficult while simultaneously praising them to their face. He was creating a narrative that only he could control. The gaslighting was subtle at first, just a low hum beneath the surface of an otherwise great working relationship. But that hum was about to get a whole lot louder. That hum got louder during the launch of Alex's big initiative. This was Alex's baby, the whole reason they were hired. Everything depended on a key piece of software from an external vendor, and David, as the department head, was the one who had to sign the purchase order. It was a simple, administrative task. Alex had sent him the paperwork weeks in advance, with multiple gentle reminders. "Just need your John Hancock on this so we can kick things off," Alex wrote in one email. "No problem, I'll get it done today," David replied. Another week went by. "Hey David, just checking in on that PO. The vendor is getting antsy." David would catch Alex in the hall, all smiles. "Oh man, it's on my desk. I've just been swamped. Don't you worry, I've got your back." He had their back, all right. He had it right up against a wall. The day before the integration was supposed to start, the vendor called Alex directly. "We haven't received a signed PO," the account manager said. "So we haven't provisioned your licenses. We can't start tomorrow." The blood drained from Alex's face. A multi-month project was about to implode because of a single signature. The low hum of anxiety suddenly became a screaming fire alarm in Alex's head. The project wasn't just in jeopardy, it was already on fire, and David was the one holding the matches. Alex, in a state of controlled panic, forwarded the email chain to David and walked over to his office. "David, we have a huge problem. The vendor never got the PO." David looked up from his screen, his face a perfect mask of surprise and concern. "What? That's impossible. I signed that weeks ago. I specifically remember signing it." Alex was stunned. "But they never got it. I have them on the phone." David shook his head, a world-weary sigh escaping his lips. "Well, Alex, I can't control what happens after it leaves my desk. Are you sure you sent it to the right person at the vendor? Did you follow up with them to confirm receipt?" The conversation had been flipped on its head in 5 seconds. "Alex, holding concrete proof of David's promises, was suddenly being cross-examined about their own diligence. Yes, I followed up. You told me you were handling it. David leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. I think you're misremembering, Alex. I told you I'd sign it, which I did. Your role was to manage the vendor relationship and the execution. This feels like a classic case of dropping the ball on follow-through. I'm disappointed. This was your big project. Alex felt the floor dissolve. The certainty, the righteous anger, it all evaporated and was replaced by that familiar, sickening fog of confusion. David's confidence was absolute. Was it possible? Did Alex somehow screw this up? The email chain felt less like proof and more like a confusing artifact from an alternate reality. The fallout was immediate and brutal. David called an emergency meeting with his own boss and the key stakeholders, and Alex had to sit there and watch a master at work. David was a portrait of pained leadership. Look, he began, I'm the head of this department, so accountability stops with me. I take full responsibility for this failure. He paused, letting the nobility of his statement sink in. The stakeholders nodded, impressed. However, he continued, for this to be a learning moment for the team, we have to be honest about the breakdown. I brought Alex in to lead this, to own it from start to finish. And while I know they are incredibly talented, their management of the operational details, like ensuring a critical PO was actioned, was a major gap. It's a tough lesson in the importance of follow-through. It was breathtaking. He had somehow managed to take full responsibility while simultaneously pinning 100% of the blame on Alex. He was the noble leader, and Alex was the talented but unreliable subordinate who let him down. Alex looked around the room. No one was looking at David with suspicion. They were all looking at Alex with disappointment. The seeds of doubt David had planted weeks ago, that Alex was intimidating, or not a team player, had created fertile ground for this new narrative to take root. Alex was no longer the star hire. They were the problem child. David had not only thrown them under the bus, he'd built the bus, sold them the ticket, and was now driving it himself. That night, Alex did exactly what you might do. They sat in front of their laptop until 2 a.m., mainlining caffeine and anxiety, scrolling through months of emails, Slack messages, and meeting notes. They were desperately searching for the one perfect, undeniable piece of evidence that would prove they weren't crazy. See, right here. He said he would handle it. But the deeper Alex dug, the more they realized how masterful David had been. His promises were often verbal. His written replies were just vague enough to be deniable. Got it. We'll look at this. On my radar. It was a masterclass in plausible deniability. For every email Alex found, they could already hear David's explanation, his gentle correction, his feigned disappointment in their misinterpretation. This desperate search for proof isn't about winning an argument. It's a search for sanity. It's the act of a person trying to anchor themselves to reality while a hurricane of manipulation rages around them. You start to feel like a detective in a noir film, except the mystery you're trying to solve is whether or not you're a competent human being. And the villain of the story keeps telling you, with a patient smile, that you're the one who can't be trusted. This is the escalation point. The gaslighter tests the waters with small manipulations. If they get away with it, they grow bolder. The lies get bigger, the consequences more severe. They see that you're susceptible to the doubt, that you'll question yourself before you question them. And once they know that, they own you. And here's the truly insidious part. Once they know they own you, the game changes. You stop trying to prove you're right. That frantic late-night search for evidence? It stops. Not because you found peace, but because you've accepted defeat. You internalize the narrative they've written for you. You start to believe, on some level, that you are unreliable, that you are too sensitive, that you are the one who keeps dropping the ball. This is a psychological state known as learned helplessness. It's what happens to lab rats who learn that no matter what they do, they can't avoid an electric shock. Eventually, they just stop trying. They just lie down and take it. You have, in essence, been conditioned to stop trying to defend yourself. You just lie down and take the blame. Your main goal is no longer to succeed or to prove your worth. It's simply to avoid the shock. You become hypervigilant, constantly scanning your boss's mood, trying to anticipate their next move, not so you can counter it, but so you can get out of the way. You become a master of appeasement. You agree with their bad ideas. You stay silent when they take credit for your work. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. You've learned that the path of least resistance is the only one that doesn't lead directly to a public flogging. Your professional ambition shrivels up and dies, replaced by a much more primal instinct: survival. Now, you might think a gaslighter would be satisfied with this. They've won. You're broken, compliant, and no longer a threat. But it gets worse. They don't just want you to be docile. They want to completely dismantle the person you were before you met them. And they do this by targeting your greatest strengths. This is a key tell. A good boss identifies your strengths and helps you leverage them. A gaslighting boss identifies your strengths and tries to convince you they are actually weaknesses. Are you incredibly organized and detail-oriented? They'll create chaos, change priorities constantly without telling you, and then criticize you for not being flexible or agile. Are you a brilliant creative with amazing ideas? They'll call you unrealistic or blue sky, insisting on a more practical, read, mediocre approach. They'll bog you down in so much administrative nonsense that you have no time left to be creative. For Alex, their strength was strategic leadership and flawless execution. So what did David do? He started micromanaging Alex's every move under the guise of providing support. He demanded daily, multi-page reports on progress. He'd pop by Alex's desk 5 times a day to check in. He insisted on being CC'd on every single email and would then reply all, questioning a minor detail and derailing the entire conversation. He was wrapping Alex's competence in layers of red tape, turning their greatest asset into a source of constant anxiety. The message was clear. The thing you think you're best at, you're actually terrible at it, and you need me to save you from yourself. Why do they do this? Why attack your best qualities? Because your strengths are a threat to their fragile ego. Your competence is a bright, shining mirror held up to their incompetence. They can't stand the reflection, so they have to shatter the mirror. Think about it. A deeply insecure person who has clawed their way into a position of power lives in constant fear of being exposed as a fraud. This is classic imposter syndrome, but instead of internalizing it, they project it. When you walk in, confident and capable, you are a walking, talking reminder of everything they're not. Your success doesn't reflect well on the team. It makes them feel diminished by comparison. So they have to bring you down to their level, or preferably a level below them. It's a desperate act of self-preservation. By systematically convincing you that your strengths are weaknesses, they neutralize you as a threat. You'll stop speaking up with brilliant ideas because you've been conditioned to believe they're impractical. You'll stop organizing projects efficiently because you've been bogged down in their chaotic processes. You'll stop trusting the very skills that got you hired in the first place. You become a shell of your former professional self, which is exactly what they want. You're no longer a threat. You're just another piece on their board, one they can move around at will without any fear of you flipping the table. This brings us to another infuriatingly effective tactic: dismissing your logic by claiming you don't understand the bigger picture. You see, there might come a point where, even in your beaten-down state, you summon the courage to point out a flaw. You've done the research, you have the data, and you can clearly see that a proposed plan is going to be a disaster. You lay out your case calmly and logically. You present facts, figures, and a rational argument. You've cornered them with logic. But a gaslighter doesn't play by the rules of logic. They simply refuse to engage with your points. Instead, they'll lean back with a condescending sigh and hit you with, "I understand why you see it that way, but you're not looking at the whole board." Or, "You're getting bogged down in the details, Alex. There are politics at play here that you just don't understand yet." It's a verbal smokescreen. It reframes your sound logic as naivety. It implies they are operating on a higher plane of strategic thought, playing 4D chess while you're still fumbling with checkers. They don't have to refute your facts if they can just dismiss your ability to comprehend the real situation. It's a way of saying, your facts are irrelevant because my wisdom is superior. And because their supposed bigger picture is always conveniently vague and confidential, you can never argue against it. You're left sputtering, your perfect logical argument lying dead on the floor, while they float away on a cloud of their own imagined genius. So there you are, with your beautiful, airtight, logical argument lying in pieces on the floor, slain by the mythical beast known as the bigger picture. It's a uniquely frustrating kind of defeat. It's like showing up to a math test with all the right answers, only to be told the test was actually about poetry. And by the way, you're bad at that too. This isn't just about being right or wrong in a single meeting. This is a tactic of career sabotage, pure and simple. Because when your logic is consistently dismissed as irrelevant, you stop offering it. You stop being the person who raises red flags. You stop being the person who innovates or pushes back. You become quiet, and in the corporate world, quiet is often mistaken for invisible, or worse, incompetent. This is exactly the point. The gaslighter isn't just trying to win arguments, they're trying to systematically dismantle your professional value. They need to ensure that no one else sees the competence they find so threatening. They need to put a lid on you. They become a gatekeeper, not of quality or standards, but of your own potential. This gatekeeping can take many forms. The most common is blocking you from high-visibility projects. You know the ones, the projects that get you noticed by senior leadership, the ones that lead to promotions. You'll hear about a new, exciting initiative. It's a perfect fit for your skills. You're practically vibrating with excitement to get involved. You go to your boss, Pat, and make your case. And Pat will listen with that infuriatingly patient smile and say, "I love your enthusiasm, I really do, but I don't think you're quite ready for that yet. I need you to stay focused on your current projects and shore up some of your development areas." It sounds so reasonable, doesn't it? It almost sounds like they're looking out for you, protecting you from failing on a bigger stage. But what are those development areas? They're the very same weaknesses Pat invented and assigned to you. You're not detail-oriented enough because Pat withholds information. You're not strategic enough because Pat dismisses your logic as naive. They are barring you from opportunities based on a fictional character profile they created for you. They're essentially saying, "You can't go to the party because of the ugly outfit I forced you to wear." It's a closed loop of sabotage. You can't fix the supposed flaws without the opportunities, and you can't get the opportunities because of the supposed flaws. After the PO disaster, Alex tried to claw their way back. They worked nights and weekends on a new proposal, a brilliant data-driven plan to salvage the initiative. It was their redemption arc. They presented it to David, feeling a flicker of their old confidence. David loved it. "This is fantastic, Alex. Truly. Leave it with me. I want to think on the best way to position this upstairs." A week later, Alex saw a meeting on the calendar. Project Phoenix, a new path forward. The meeting was with all the senior leaders, and Alex wasn't invited. David presented Alex's entire plan, almost word for word. He positioned himself as the visionary leader who had single-handedly rescued a failing project from the brink. He got a standing ovation. When Alex confronted him, David was ready. "Look, after the last fumble, your credibility with leadership is shot. I had to present it myself to give it the best chance of success. I was protecting you. When you've rebuilt some trust, you'll get your moment in the sun. For now, let's just be happy the project is saved." He made stealing credit sound like a noble sacrifice. He weaponized Alex's past failure, a failure he engineered to justify erasing them from their own success. Alex wasn't just on the bench. They were being told the team won the championship for them, and they should be grateful. And then comes the salt in the wound. The gaslighter doesn't just steal your glory, they give it to someone else. This is where they promote one of your colleagues into the role of the golden child. This person becomes the shining example of everything you're not. They're collaborative, positive, and a real team player. In Alex's case, it was a junior analyst named Chloe. David started publicly praising Chloe for her insightful contributions to the new plan. Contributions that were, of course, entirely Alex's. In team meetings, David would say, "Chloe had a great idea here," while looking directly at Alex. He was creating a public spectacle, a real-time demonstration of his power to create and destroy value. He was showing everyone on the team, "I decide who gets the credit, I decide who is valuable." This turns the golden child into an unwitting, or sometimes witting, accomplice, one of the flying monkeys. Chloe, just trying to do her job, is now benefiting from Alex's stolen labor. This creates an impossible dynamic. You can't be angry at Chloe, she might not even know the full story. But every time she's praised for your work, it's another twist of the knife. It's not just that you're invisible, it's that someone else is wearing your skin and getting complimented on the fit. This whole golden child char scapegoat dynamic is a special kind of psychological torture. It's like watching someone else move into your house, redecorate with your furniture, and get praised by the neighbors for their impeccable taste. You're left standing on the lawn, holding the original blueprints, while everyone wonders why you're being so weird and possessive about it. The goal here is to sever the connection between your effort and your value. Up until this point, you probably operated on a pretty simple assumption. If I do good work, I will be seen as valuable. The gaslighter demolishes this. They prove to you that your work can be valuable, but you are not. They can extract the good stuff, your ideas, your strategies, your labor, and discard the container, which is you. This is profoundly destabilizing. It turns you into a ghostwriter for your own career. You produce the words, but someone else's name goes on the cover. And when you exist in this state for long enough, you start to believe it. You start to see yourself as just a resource, a vessel for ideas, but not the brilliant mind that creates them. Your sense of professional identity completely disintegrates. You're no longer a great project manager or a talented designer. You're just the person who does the work that Chloe gets praised for. It's the ultimate commodification of your talent, and it leaves you feeling hollowed out and worthless, which is, of course, exactly the point. Once your sense of identity is in shambles, the gaslighter can move on to their masterpiece: rewriting history. This isn't just about denying something that happened last week. This is about retroactively changing the entire narrative of your time at the company. Projects you successfully led are now remembered as team efforts, where you played a minor role. Times you saved the day are forgotten, while minor mistakes you made are magnified and turned into legendary cautionary tales. Your boss becomes the official historian of the department, and they have a very, very biased pen. They'll do it in casual conversation. "Yeah, the launch of Product X was a real nail-biter. We almost lost the client because of some early communication mix-ups, but thankfully, Chloe stepped in and smoothed things over." They fail to mention that you were the one leading the project, and the communication mix-ups were because they gave you the wrong information. In their version of history, you are a bumbling side character, and the heroes are your boss and their chosen few. This is incredibly disorienting because memories are shared things. We build a collective understanding of the past with our colleagues. But the gaslighter poisons that well. They create an official, sanctioned history that doesn't match your reality. And when everyone else starts repeating the false history, you feel like you're in some Philip K. Dick novel, the only one who remembers the original timeline. You start to wonder if your memory is just a collection of self-serving delusions. The gaslighter isn't just controlling the present. They're seizing control of your past, ensuring that even your own accomplishments no longer belong to you. This historical revisionism is made so much easier by the network of flying monkeys and golden children the gaslighter has cultivated. The manipulation becomes a self-perpetuating system. Your boss doesn't even have to gaslight you directly anymore. Your colleagues will do it for them. This is gaslighting by proxy, and it's a whole new level of hell. The golden child, Chloe, now fully believing the hype, might start offering you help. She'll come to your desk and say, "Hey Alex, David mentioned you were struggling with the analytics for this. I just finished a similar report. Want me to walk you through it?" She's trying to be helpful, but what she's really doing is reinforcing the narrative that you are incompetent. She's explaining your own job to you, a job you were an expert in before David broke your confidence. Other colleagues, who have only heard the boss's side of things, will start to treat you differently. They'll double-check your work. They'll gently remind you of deadlines. They'll explain basic concepts to you in meetings. Each of these interactions is a tiny paper cut. Individually, they're nothing, but collectively, they bleed you dry. You're now living in a 360-degree gaslighting environment. It's coming from above and from the side. You are completely surrounded by a false narrative that everyone else accepts as truth. It's like being the only sober person at a party where everyone else is drunk on your boss's Kool-Aid. You can't argue with them because they're not operating in your reality anymore. They're in the matrix, and your boss is the architect. So, what's the long-term damage of all this? It follows you. The constant stress and anxiety can have serious health consequences. We've talked about that. But the career damage is just as real. When you finally decide you've had enough and it's time to leave, you run into a new problem. How do you talk about your job? Your resume is a minefield. You look at the bullet points of your accomplishments and a voice in your head, a voice that sounds suspiciously like your boss, whispers, "But did you really do that? Or did Chloe? Remember how you dropped the ball?" Your confidence is so shot that you can't even sell yourself on your own successes. And then comes the interview. The dreaded question. "So, tell me about your role in Project Phoenix." What do you say? You can't tell the truth. You can't say, "Well, I invented the project, executed it brilliantly, but my insecure, manipulative boss stole the credit and gave it to a junior colleague to systematically destroy my professional value." You'll sound bitter, crazy, or both. You'll sound like you're not a team player. So you have to lie, or at least tell a sanitized corporate version of the story. "It was a great team effort. I was responsible for the initial framework, and Chloe did a great job with the stakeholder management." You have to participate in your own erasure just to get another job. The gaslighting has effectively sabotaged your past, present, and future. It's a prison that extends beyond the walls of the office. That prison is a lonely place, isn't it? Even after you've physically left the building, you're still doing the time. You carry the experience around with you like a ghost that won't stop rearranging your mental furniture. It whispers doubts in your ear during job interviews. It makes you flinch when a new, perfectly nice boss asks a simple question. You're free, but you don't feel free. You're just waiting for the other shoe to drop, even though you're not in the shoe store anymore. But then, one day, something happens. It's usually not a big, dramatic moment. It's a small thing. A glitch in the system. You're telling the story of the Project Phoenix disaster to a friend for the 15th time, expecting the usual sympathetic head nod. But this time, your friend stops you. They put their coffee cup down, look you dead in the eye, and say, "Wait, go back. He told you that he had to present your work to protect you? That's not just messed up, that is certifiably insane." And in that moment, for the first time, a tiny crack appears in the solid wall of the false reality your boss built around you. A single ray of actual, unfiltered sunlight cuts through the fog. It's the first sign that the problem might not be your perception, but the world you were forced to perceive. That tiny crack is your escape hatch. And now we get to the good part, how you start to break out. The first step, paradoxically, is to stop fighting. Stop trying to win. Stop trying to convince them. You cannot win a game when the other player is not only making up the rules as they go, but also insisting that the board is a waffle and your pieces are blueberries. It's a losing proposition. You have to disengage. I don't mean quit your job tomorrow. That's not always possible. I mean, you have to emotionally and psychologically check out from their drama. Start thinking of your gaslighting boss not as your adversary, but as a subject of anthropological study. They are a weird, fascinating, and ultimately predictable force of nature, like a tornado or a particularly aggressive goose. You wouldn't argue with the goose, would you? You wouldn't try to reason with it or explain how its honking is hurting your feelings. You'd just observe it, maybe take some notes on its behavior, and keep a safe distance. This is your new mindset. When your boss starts their routine, denying, blaming, minimizing, your internal monologue shifts from, "Here we go again, this is awful," to, fascinating. We are observing the classic blame-shifting maneuver. Note the lack of eye contact and the slight uptick in vocal pitch. Textbook. This emotional detachment is your shield. It creates a buffer between their toxic behavior and your sense of self. That brings us to the most powerful tool in your escape kit: documentation. Yes, we talked about this before as a frantic search for sanity. Now, it becomes a calm, deliberate act of rebellion. You need to become the most meticulous historian of your own reality. Get a private journal, a password-protected document on your personal computer, somewhere your boss can never, ever access. And you start writing everything down. Date, time, who was present, what was said, using direct quotes as much as possible, what was promised, what was later denied. But here's the most important part. You also write down how it made you feel. Felt confused. Felt angry but questioned my right to be. Felt humiliated. This isn't just about creating a log of their misdeeds. This is about validating your own experience to yourself. Their entire strategy is to make your reality feel like smoke. This document is how you turn that smoke back into stone. It becomes an undeniable physical artifact of your truth. When you start to doubt yourself, when you think, maybe I am overreacting, you can go back to your log. You can see the pattern. You can see 10, 20, 50 entries that all tell the same story. This document is not for HR. It's not for a lawyer, though it could be useful later. First and foremost, it is a case file you are building to prove to yourself that you are not crazy. It is your personal, ungaslightable source of truth. Once you have your internal anchor, your log, you need to build an external support system. A gaslighter's power thrives in isolation. They need you to believe that their twisted reality is the only one that exists. So, you have to smash that isolation to pieces. You need to assemble your sanity board of directors. This is your trusted circle. Friends, family, a partner, a therapist, people who are outside the toxic bubble of your workplace. These are the people you can go to and say, "Okay, sanity check. My boss just told me that the sky is green and that I should have known it was going to be green because of a conversation we never had. Am I losing my mind?" And your board of directors will look at you and say, "No, the sky is blue. Your boss is a manipulative lunatic. Now let's get brunch." Every time you do this, you are strengthening your connection to actual reality. You are recalibrating your normal meter, which has been deliberately broken by your boss. It's also crucial to find at least one person at work, if you can. Someone on another team, someone you trust. You don't have to give them the whole sordid story. Just a simple, "Hey, did Pat seem a little off in that meeting?" Sometimes, a simple knowing eye roll from a coworker can be more validating than 1,000 words. It's a tiny signal that you are not alone on your island. Someone else sees the goose too. That coworker's eye roll, that friend's validation, that's the crack of light you need. Because once you know for sure that you're not the only one who sees the goose, you can start to change how you interact with it. You're still in the enclosure for now, but you don't have to play by the goose's rules anymore. This is where you start to subtly take your power back, not with a big confrontation, but with small, strategic shifts in your language. One of the most powerful tools you can start using is the word we. Think about it. The gaslighter's entire game is based on creating a me versus you dynamic. You misunderstood. I never said that. Your memory is faulty. It's always a conflict between their perfect reality and your flawed one. The word we gently dismantles that. It subtly reestablishes the idea that you are a team, operating under a shared understanding. So, instead of saying, "But you told me the deadline was Friday," you shift to, "My understanding was that we agreed on Friday." Instead of, "You said you would approve it, you try. I was hoping we could get on the same page about the approval process." It's a soft reframing, but it's incredibly effective. It's non-confrontational. You're not accusing, you're clarifying a mutual agreement. It forces them to either agree with the we, and therefore your version of reality, or to sound like a complete jerk by rejecting the premise of teamwork. It's like they're trying to play poker, and you keep gently reminding them that the game is actually go fish. It messes with their whole strategy. This soft reframing works best when paired with its best friend, the follow-up email. This is where your new, calm documentation habit goes from a private shield to a public tool. It's your secret weapon disguised as professionalism. The next time you have a verbal conversation with your boss where a key decision is made, your new habit is to immediately, or at least within the hour, send a brief, friendly confirmation email. It's a work of art in its simplicity. "Hi, Pat. Great chatting with you. Just wanted to summarize so we're on the same page. My key takeaway is that we're moving forward with the blue design, and I'll have the final mock-ups to you by end of day Thursday. Please let me know if your understanding is different. Best, you." That's it. It's polite, it's proactive, it's the email of a model employee. But what you've actually done is brilliant. You've taken their vague, deniable verbal statement and forced it into the harsh, undeniable light of the written word. You've created a time-stamped record. Now, they have 3 choices. 1, they can ignore it, in which case your written summary stands as the accepted truth. 2, they can reply, "Yep, looks good," in which case you have ironclad proof. Or 3, they have to lie in writing to contradict you, which is a much scarier, more provable offense than lying to your face. You've taken the ball out of their court of chaos and placed it firmly in the court of record. You're not just taking notes anymore, you're creating the minutes. Okay, so you're creating a paper trail. You're reestablishing the we. But what do you do when they hit you with that classic, vague, soul-crushing criticism in real time? This report just lacks punch. I need you to be more of a leader. Your presentation wasn't compelling. The old you would have retreated, tail between your legs, and spent the next 3 days spiraling into a vortex of self-doubt, trying to figure out how to quantify punch. The new you does something terrifying and powerful. You ask questions. You have to turn their vague nonsense back on them. You do it politely, of course. You frame it as a desire to improve. "Thanks for that feedback, Pat. That's really helpful. So I can get it right next time, could you point to a specific part of the report where you felt the punch was missing? Or, I appreciate that. Can you give me an example of a time when I could have been more of a leader, so I have a clearer picture of what you're looking for?" This is the gaslighter's kryptonite. They operate in the fog of ambiguity. Forcing them to provide concrete, specific, actionable examples is like turning a giant spotlight on their fog machine. More often than not, they can't do it. They'll stammer. They'll deflect. They'll say, I don't have time to hold your hand, which is itself an answer. It tells you their criticism was baseless. You're not doing it to be a jerk. You're doing it to expose the fact that their feedback isn't feedback at all. It's just a control tactic dressed up in a business suit. These techniques are great, but they require you to be calm and collected. And that's hard when someone is actively trying to push your buttons. This is where you learn the fine art of becoming a gray rock. Imagine the most boring, uninteresting gray rock you can. That is your new persona in any direct confrontation with your boss. Gaslighters are emotional vampires. They feed on your frustration, your anger, your tears, your confusion. That's their payoff. The gray rock method is about starving them of that emotional reaction. You make yourself as boring and unresponsive as possible. When they try to provoke you, when they deny something you know is true, you don't argue. You don't raise your voice. You don't get defensive. You just state the facts as you know them in a calm, monotone voice. You told me the deadline was Wednesday. Boss. I would never say that. That's ridiculous. Why are you always trying to argue with me? Old you. But you did. I remember it distinctly. Gray rock you. My notes indicate the deadline is Wednesday. Boss. Are you calling me a liar? You're being incredibly disrespectful. Gray rock you. I'm just referencing my notes from our meeting. See the difference? You're not taking the bait. You are refusing to engage with the emotional drama. You just become a boring, broken record of facts. It drives them absolutely nuts because they can't get the reaction they need. It's not about winning the argument. It's about ending the conversation with your sanity intact. You simply refuse to be a fun toy for them to play with anymore. And here's a fun little secret about the gray rock method. It works. It really, really works. But not in the way you might think. It doesn't magically make your boss a better person. It doesn't lead to a tearful breakthrough where they realize the error of their ways. Oh no. What it does is make them escalate. A gaslighter who isn't getting their emotional supply is like a toddler whose favorite toy has suddenly run out of batteries. First, they'll get confused. Then, they'll get frustrated. Then, they will throw a tantrum. They might get louder. They might become more overtly critical. They might try to ambush you in the hallway. They're desperately trying to get a spark out of you, any spark at all. This escalation is terrifying, but it's also a sign that you're winning. You've successfully disrupted their pattern. You've taken away their fuel source. They are running on fumes, and it's making them sloppy. This is the moment where you have to hold the line. It's the final, desperate attack before they realize you are no longer a viable source of narcissistic supply. They will eventually get bored of kicking a boring gray rock and will go off in search of a more reactive, more entertaining toy. But while you're waiting for that to happen, you need to upgrade your defenses from a passive shield to an active perimeter fence. This is where you learn to set boundaries. The word boundaries can sound aggressive, like you're about to start flipping tables. But that's not it at all. Think of it this way. For months, or maybe years, you've been living in a house with no doors and no fences. Your manipulative boss could wander into your living room at 10 p.m., rearrange your furniture, and critique your choice of wallpaper. You are completely exposed. Setting boundaries is simply the act of deciding where your property line is. It's putting up a fence. It's locking your door at night. It's deciding what is and is not acceptable. For you, this means setting boundaries around your time, your energy, and your responsibilities. The old you was available 24/7. The old you would drop everything for a manufactured emergency. The old you would take on tasks that weren't your job just to be seen as a team player. The new you understands that your time outside of work is yours. Your energy is a finite resource, and your job description exists for a reason. You're not building a wall to keep everyone out. You're building a fence with a gate. You decide who comes in, when they come in, and how long they get to stay. It's not about being difficult. It's about being self-respecting. It's the ultimate act of reclaiming your space. So what does this look like in practice? It's all about polite, firm, and boringly professional phrases. Let's say your boss calls you at 8 p.m. with a brilliant idea they just had. Old you would have answered, listened for an hour, and lost a night of sleep. New you lets it go to voicemail. If they ask about it the next day, you say, I saw you called, but I make it a practice to disconnect after hours to ensure I'm fresh for the next day. What's up? You're not apologizing. You're stating your policy. What if they drop a last-minute urgent task on you at 4:55 p.m.? Old you would have canceled your plans and stayed until midnight. New you says, I can definitely get to that. My priority right now is finishing Project X, as we agreed. I can start on this first thing in the morning. Will that work? You're not saying no. You're prioritizing based on previously agreed upon goals, which is the very definition of being a good employee. You are using the language of business to enforce your personal boundaries. Here are a few more for your arsenal. I'm not the best person to handle that, but Mark in accounting is the expert. A polite way of saying, that's not my job. I'm at capacity right now. If you want me to prioritize this new task, which of my current projects should I put on the back burner? This puts the onus back on them to manage workloads realistically. These phrases are your fence posts. They are calm, reasonable, and almost impossible to argue with without sounding like a tyrant. Now, for the hard part. A boundary is meaningless if it isn't enforced. And you have to understand, a gaslighter will not respect your new fence. They will test it. They will rattle the gate. They will try to climb over it. They will look for any weakness. They've had free reign of your property for a long time, and they're not going to give it up without a fight. When you say, I can start that in the morning, they will come back with, no, this needs to be done tonight. The company depends on it. This is the critical moment. This is where the old you would have caved. The new you has to hold the line. You don't get angry, you don't argue, you just calmly repeat the boundary. I understand it's important, and I will make it my first priority at 9 a.m. You have to be a polite, professional, immovable object. Think of it like training a puppy. If you tell the puppy not to jump on the couch, but sometimes you let it, all you've taught the puppy is that it's worth trying to jump on the couch. Your boss is the puppy. You have to be 100% consistent. Every time they test the boundary, you calmly and boringly enforce it. The first few times will be agonizing. You'll feel guilty. You'll feel scared. But after a while, something amazing happens. They learn. They learn that your fence is electric. They learn that rattling your gate is a waste of their time. And they will, grudgingly, start to respect it. So, you've done it. You've built your fence. The puppy boss has learned that jumping on your couch results in a boring, firm no, and has mostly retreated to go find a more pliable chew toy. This is a huge victory. Seriously, pop a tiny bottle of champagne. But here's the thing. You're now standing in your perfectly fenced-in yard, and you realize the lawn is a mess. The gaslighter has dug holes everywhere, trampled the flower beds, and left emotional landmines all over the place. The defenses are up, but the damage is done. Your confidence is shot. Your belief in your own skills is shaky at best. You've spent so long playing defense that you've forgotten how to play offense. It's not enough to just survive in this toxic terrarium. The next phase of the escape isn't about your boss anymore. It's about you. It's about rebuilding. It's time to become the architect of your own comeback story. First things first. You have to remember who you were before they told you who you were. Your gaslighting boss has spent months convincing you that your greatest strengths are actually fatal flaws. Your creativity was unrealistic. Your organization was too rigid. Your ambition was not being a team player. You need to go on a fact-finding mission to rediscover your own competence. Start by digging up your career fossils. Go back to previous jobs. Read old performance reviews from sane, non-manipulative bosses. Find those emails from happy clients or colleagues praising your work. You saved us with that analysis. This design is brilliant. These are artifacts from a time before the gaslighting started. They are proof that you were good at your job. You have to treat this like an archaeological dig. dusting off the evidence of your own past successes to remind the present-day you that your skills are real. They've just been buried under a thick layer of bullshit. Once you've re-established a baseline of, okay, I don't totally suck, you need to start creating new evidence. Your brain has been conditioned to see failure everywhere. You need to actively hunt for success, even on a micro level. This is the small wins strategy. Forget about that massive high-stakes project your boss will just sabotage anyway. Focus on the small stuff you can control completely. Did you write a perfectly clear and concise email? That's a win. Put a check mark in your mental notebook. Did you organize a folder system that makes perfect sense? Win. Did you help a colleague solve a small problem? Win. Did you successfully brew a cup of coffee without spilling it on your keyboard? Honestly, on some days, that's a win. This isn't about ego. It's about data collection. You are systematically feeding your battered confidence small, regular doses of proof that you are capable. You're rebuilding your self-esteem one tiny, undeniable success at a time. It's like learning to walk again. You don't start with a marathon. You start with a single step. Now that you're collecting internal data, it's time to collect some external data. This is the fun part. You're going to go window shopping for a new job. No pressure. You don't have to apply. You don't even have to update your resume yet. Just go on LinkedIn or your job board of choice and look. Look at what other companies are hiring for. Read the descriptions for roles similar to yours. And as you read, you'll see something amazing. You'll see companies asking for skills you have. They want someone who is detail-oriented, the very thing your boss criticized you for. They're looking for a strategic thinker, the quality you were told you lacked. They're searching for someone with your exact experience. This is the ultimate reality check. It proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that your boss's assessment of your value is not the market value. It's a localized, highly biased, and completely inaccurate opinion. You are not a broken-down jalopy that only your boss is willing to keep on the road. You are a high-performance vehicle, and there are other garages that would be thrilled to have you. This realization is the key that turns the lock on your mental prison. You're not just surviving anymore. You're getting ready to leave. That key is now in your hand. The mental prison door is unlocked, and you can see the world outside. It's a world where your skills are valuable, where detail-oriented is a compliment, not an accusation. This is the turning point. This is where you stop rebuilding the broken-down shack in your toxic boss's backyard and start drawing up the blueprints for your new castle somewhere else. The escape plan is now active. You move from casually window shopping for jobs to becoming a secret agent on a mission. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to get the hell out. First, you tackle the resume. You pull up that document, and you can almost hear your boss's voice critiquing every bullet point. Are you sure you led that project? Don't you think that's exaggerating? The old you would have buckled, deleted the line, and minimized the accomplishment. The new you tells that voice to shut up. You have your career fossils, your archaeological proof of past successes. You have your list of small wins. You look at your resume not as a list of things your boss approved of, but as a factual record of the work you did, despite their interference. You write with a newfound confidence. Led cross-functional team to deliver Project X ahead of schedule. Yes, you did that. Developed innovative new workflow that increased efficiency by 15%. Yes, that was your idea, even if they called it unrealistic before they stole it. You are reclaiming your own story, one bullet point at a time. With your resume polished and gleaming with the truth, you now have to prepare for the interview stage. Specifically, for the question. So, why are you looking to leave your current role? This question is a minefield. The temptation is to just unload. Because my boss is a soul-sucking dementor who feasts on joy and subsists on a diet of lies and my shattered confidence. While accurate, this is generally not considered a winning interview strategy. It makes you sound bitter and difficult, which, ironically, is exactly what the gaslighter has accused you of being. So, You need to craft your exit narrative. This isn't about lying, it's about framing. You are not running away from a dumpster fire. You are running towards an exciting new opportunity. You practice your lines in the mirror. I've learned so much in my current role, but I'm looking for a new challenge where I can take on more responsibility in strategic planning. Or, I'm really looking to join a company with a more collaborative and innovative culture, which is something that really drew me to your organization. You are turning your pain into your purpose. The things you were deprived of in your toxic job, opportunity, collaboration, sanity, are now the very things you are actively seeking. It's a positive, forward-looking story, and you are the ambitious, capable hero of that story, not the victim of your old one. Something incredible happens once you have this escape plan in motion. Once you've sent out a few applications, maybe even landed an interview, you start walking into your old office with a secret. It's the secret of your impending freedom. And this secret changes everything. It's like having an invisibility cloak or a get-out-of-jail-free card in your back pocket. The power dynamic shifts dramatically. Your boss's antics, which used to feel like life-or-death threats, now seem kind of pathetic. When Pat denies a conversation you had yesterday, you don't feel that surge of panic and confusion anymore. You just think, wow, that's a bold-faced lie. Can't wait to not have to deal with this anymore. When they try to heap blame on you in a meeting, you don't feel the sting of humiliation. You feel a kind of detached pity. It's like watching a really bad magician try to pull off a trick you figured out ages ago. You see the strings. You know how the trick works, and it's just not impressive anymore. Their power over you was entirely dependent on you believing that this job, this reality, was the only one you had. Once you know that's not true, their power evaporates. You have one foot out the door, and from that vantage point, you can see their little kingdom for what it really is. A sad, tiny fiefdom ruled by a deeply insecure tyrant. As you get closer to the finish line, there's one final dragon to slay. The reference check. This is a legitimate fear. What if they call your boss and he tells them you're the incompetent, hysterical mess he's always pretended you are? First, take a deep breath. Most companies, especially larger ones, have policies that only allow them to confirm your title and dates of employment, precisely to avoid lawsuits. But let's say you're dealing with a smaller company or a persistent recruiter. You need to build a reference firewall. You don't put your gaslighting boss on your reference list, ever. Instead, you get creative. You reach out to that trusted colleague from another department, the one who gave you the knowing eye roll. You contact a former boss from a previous job who loved you. You ask a client you had a great relationship with. You are creating a coalition of the sane to vouch for you. If a recruiter absolutely insists on speaking with your current manager, you can play it strategically. You can say, Pat and I have had some differences in management style, which is part of why I'm looking for a new environment. I'd be happy for you to speak with them, but I think you'd get a more objective view of my work from my former manager, Jane Doe, or my key project colleague, John Smith. You're preemptively framing the potential bad reference as a personality clash, a normal and understandable thing, rather than letting your boss's toxicity define you. You are controlling your own narrative, right up to the very end. And then, it happens? An email lands in your inbox with a subject line that makes your heart do a little backflip. Job offer from awesome new company. You open it, and there it is, in black and white. A real salary. A real start date. A real job at a real company that has looked at your skills and your history and decided, yes, we want that. We value that. That single email is the most powerful dose of validation you've had in years. It's a direct, market-based refutation of every single piece of garbage your boss has been feeding you. Every time they told you that you were lucky to have this job, every time they implied you were incompetent or difficult, all of it is incinerated in the glow of that offer letter. It's not just a job offer, it's an official pardon from the governor of reality. It's proof that you're not the broken-down jalopy they made you feel you were. You're a high-performance vehicle, and someone just handed you the keys to a brand-new garage. The sense of relief is so profound, it's almost physical. You feel a weight you didn't even know you were still carrying just lift off your shoulders. The ghost of your boss's voice in your head, the one that whispers doubts, suddenly has laryngitis. For the first time in a long time, the future doesn't look like a long, dark tunnel. It looks like an open road. Now comes the moment you've been dreaming about and dreading in equal measure. The resignation. You walk into your boss's office, your heart hammering in your chest. But this isn't the old fear. This is the nervous excitement of a revolution. You've practiced this. You keep it short, simple, and excruciatingly professional. No drama, no grand speeches. You are the gray rock to the very end. You hand them the letter. It says nothing more than, "Please accept this as my formal resignation. My last day will be 2 weeks from today. I wish you and the company all the best." You have given them nothing. No emotional fuel, no explanation to argue with, and now you get to watch the show. A gaslighter losing control is a sight to behold. You might see a whole series of emotions flash across their face. First, genuine shock. They never thought you'd actually leave. How could you? You're so lucky to have them. Then, anger. After everything I've done for you? They might get accusatory, trying to guilt trip you. And then, if that doesn't work, you might see the most bizarre tactic of all. They become nice. Suddenly, they're your biggest fan. This is a huge loss for us. You're one of our superstars. What can we do to make you stay? This is a manipulation tactic called hoovering, like a vacuum cleaner. They are trying to suck you right back into the cycle of abuse. Don't fall for it. You just stick to your script. I appreciate that, but my decision is final. You are a polite, smiling brick wall. You are untouchable. The hoovering might escalate into the dreaded counteroffer. This is the gaslighter's last stand. They will promise you the moon, a raise, a new title, the lead on that project they blocked you from. Things will be different, they'll say, with a look of utter sincerity. I hear you. I'm going to change. This is a trap. Let me repeat. This is a trap. It's a beautifully decorated bear trap with a cheese plate and a bottle of wine on it. But it's still a bear trap. Nothing will change. The raise might be real, but the behavior won't be. The moment you accept, the power dynamic snaps right back to where it was. They will resent you for trying to leave, and they will never let you forget that they bought your loyalty. Accepting a counteroffer from a gaslighter is like renewing your lease in hell because the devil promised to install new countertops. Then comes the exit interview with HR. You will be tempted, oh so tempted, to unleash the Kraken, to present your meticulously documented log of insanity. Don't, unless you are in a situation involving illegal harassment and are working with a lawyer. The exit interview is not the time to burn everything to the ground. Why? Because HR's job is to protect the company, not you. Your detailed account will be filed away, and you will be labeled as disgruntled. Your goal is a clean escape. You give them the same bland, professional story you gave in your interviews. Great opportunity for growth. Looking for a new challenge. You smile, you shake hands, and you walk out that door for the last time, leaving them to their toxic little sandbox. And then, you start the new job. The first few weeks are weird. It's a profound culture shock, but in reverse. You're braced for impact, but the impact never comes. You walk into a meeting and state an opinion, and your new boss says, "That's a great point. Tell me more." They don't dismiss it. They don't call you naive. You spend a week on a project, and they praise your work publicly, giving you full credit. You make a small mistake, and instead of a lecture on your incompetence, you get, "No worries, that happens. Let's fix it together." It feels suspicious. You're like a rescue animal brought into a loving home for the first time. You keep waiting for the yelling, for the other shoe to drop. You might even find yourself apologizing for things that don't need apologies. "Sorry to bother you," you'll say, and your new colleague will look at you confused and say, "It's no bother, we're on the same team." This is what a healthy environment feels like. It's calm, it's respectful, it's collaborative, and it's going to take some time to get used to. You have to unlearn all the toxic survival skills you perfected. You have to learn to trust again. But with each passing day, with each positive interaction, the professional PTSD begins to fade. You're not just surviving anymore. You're starting to thrive. And as you start to thrive, you notice something curious. The experience didn't just leave scars. It gave you something else. It gave you a kind of superpower. All those months you spent being hypervigilant, constantly analyzing your boss's moods and decoding their language, you've honed that skill. You've gone from being a victim of manipulation to being an expert in human dynamics. You can read a room in seconds. You can spot a hidden agenda from a mile away. The hypervigilance that was born from fear has now morphed into a finely tuned intuition. It's the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold, making it more beautiful and stronger than it was before. Your professional psyche has been shattered, but you've pieced it back together with the gold of hard-won wisdom. You're not just healed, you're upgraded. You've been through the fire, and now you don't get burned so easily. You can smell smoke long before anyone else even sees a flame. This new superpower makes you a formidable force in your own career. When you interview for your next promotion or your next job after this one, you're not just answering questions anymore. You're gathering intelligence. You listen to how a potential new boss talks about their team. Do they use we or I? When you ask them, "Tell me about a time a project failed and what you learned from it," do they take accountability, or do they subtly blame market conditions or unmotivated team members? You can spot the telltale signs of a gaslighter now. The subtle put-downs disguised as jokes, the way they talk about former employees, the vague, buzzword-laden answers to specific questions. Your BS detector, once a source of anxiety, is now your most valuable career navigation tool. You're no longer the naive traveler, wandering into any inn that will have you. You are a seasoned explorer, able to distinguish a safe harbor from a pirate cove just by looking at the flag it flies. You will never again hand your reality over to someone who has proven they can't be trusted with their own. And one day, curiosity might get the better of you. You'll check LinkedIn, you'll see what's happening back at the old place, and you'll see something that provides the final, ultimate piece of validation. You'll see that your old boss, Pat, is still there. But Chloe, the golden child, the one who got all the praise for your work? Her profile says she left the company 3 months ago. And the person who replaced you? They left after 6. The gaslighter hasn't changed. They can't. They are stuck in their loop. Their pattern of idealizing, devaluing, and discarding people is a compulsion. They found a new target, probably Chloe. They praised her, used her, and then when she started to push back or outshine them, they began the same insidious process of tearing her down. And you realize, with a profound and quiet certainty, that it was never, ever about you. You weren't the problem. You were just the person in the chair. You were the fuel for a fire that was burning long before you got there, and will continue to burn long after you're gone. And knowing that, truly knowing it in your bones, is the final step to freedom. You are no longer a character in their story. You're the author of your own. And this is where the story ends and your real life begins. You've emerged from this experience not just intact, but stronger, wiser, more empathetic. You become the manager you wish you'd had. You become the colleague who listens. You become the person who, When a new team member looks confused and shell-shocked after a meeting, pulls them aside and says, "Hey, that was weird, right? It's not just you." You become the one who gives that knowing, validating eye roll. You can't change the gaslighters of the world, but your experience has equipped you with a rare and valuable gift, the ability to see reality clearly, even when someone is trying to shroud it in fog. And by holding on to your own truth, and by extension, helping others hold on to theirs, you do more than just save yourself. You become a lighthouse. You become a safe harbor for others who are lost in the same storm you so bravely navigated. You didn't just escape the darkness. You learned how to create your own light.